I want to say hello to everybody on Mosaic Online, also Mosaic Culver City, Mosaic Studio City. Can we give it up for them? I can't physically see you right now, but my hunch is that you look beautiful, amazing. You look kept, so good. You made it to church today. In case we haven't met, my name is Andy, and I've been a pastor at Mosaic for about 12 years. I've been a part of Mosaic for over 14 years. And this is my home. This is my family. I met my incredible wife here. I had the whole journey. I came to Mosaic single, met my wife, and now we have two little ones. Milo is 5, Caleb is 1. And I'm just so grateful to share with you this morning on this conversation that we kicked off last week. Pastor Irwin launched a series, and it's called Spiritual Vitality. And the impetus for the series, the reason we wanted to talk about this is because we have measurables for physical health, right? And we have measurables even for mental health now. But we don't really have measurables, or it's harder to have measurables for spiritual health, much more for spiritual vitality. And last week, Pastor Irwin kind of broke down like a framework for us of like these 3 essential ingredients that are needed in order to have spiritual vitality. And that is faith, hope, and love. If you want to look at your own spiritual vitality, your spiritual health, you need to look at how's your faith, how's your hope, and how's your love. And today, I want to talk to us about what Paul called the greatest of these 3. I want to talk about love. We're going to talk about the essential core ingredient of spiritual vitality, and that is love. But even as we talk about love, you still have the conundrum of the fact that it's hard to measure it, right? You can't measure it in a quantifiable way, in a numeric way. If I come up to you and I say, how's your loving going? You're like, please stop talking. So how do we measure these things that are so essential to our spiritual life? And one of the ways that we can do that is through the power of story. Looking at a story, looking at an inspiring story, an inspiring life, to be able to say, that's what it looks like. You see, because when somebody lives a life fueled by love, where their aim is love, you maybe can't quantify it, but you know it when you see it. Right? You can recognize it. And in the scriptures, there's actually a story of a young person who lived their life in such a way, who lived a life fueled by and filled with love in such a way that it became a marker for Jewish culture, for what it looks like to live a life of love. See, it's interesting, when you look in the scriptures, they actually have more than one word that translates to love. You know, there are several words that are then translated to love, and one of those words has to do with brotherly love, or the love between friends. One of those words has to do with the love of romantic love, the love between you and your partner. But there's this other Hebrew word. It goes hesed. Let me hear you say hesed. Let me hear you say it for real. Hesed. You're all like trepidatious. Like, can I say that? And it's this word that is often translated to steadfast love, like this covenantal love, this committed love, to this love that is sacrificial, goes above and beyond. And more often than not, that word is attributed to God. It's like God is the one who has steadfast love. God is the one who has covenantal love. God is the one who has an unchanging love. But we are called to live out that love. And in fact, we can live out that love. And that love is exemplified in the story of this young woman named Ruth. She is the example of what it looks like to live a life of hesed, of this steadfast, unwavering, unconditional, sacrificial love. Now, some context for the story of Ruth before we read this passage. Ruth showed her devotion and her commitment to her mother-in-law, Naomi. So the story of Ruth starts off with Naomi and her husband moved to a foreign land, and they have 2 sons. And their 2 sons marry these 2 Moabite women, Ruth and Orpah. And then after a tragic turn of events, Naomi's husband dies, and then later her 2 sons die. So you went from these women that were trying to build a family to all of a sudden you have these 3 widows in a foreign land in the middle of a famine. So things are really, really bleak. And Naomi tells her 2 daughters-in-law, he tells them, you guys go off without me. I'm going to surrender to the elements. I don't have anything to offer you. I'm older, but you are both young women. You have a chance to find a new husband or start a new life for yourself. So why don't you go? And Orpah, one of the daughters, she says, okay. She takes that deal. She's like, I love you, Naomi, but yes, I am going to go find a new husband. But Ruth has a different response. It says in Ruth chapter 1, verse 16, it says, but Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. This sounds really inspiring, like, wow, that's so cool, but it's really crazy. It doesn't make sense for Ruth, because right now she's basically tethering her life to a lose-lose situation. She's like, yes, I'm going to follow this elderly woman and build a life with her, even though the chances of me being with her is going to be really hard for me later to find a husband, to find somebody else to provide for us, to protect us, all of these things. But there was something about Ruth's character and something about the way that she saw the world and the way that she moved and the way that she operated, that she was able to tap into this next level of love, of living a life of love and devotion and sacrifice, that as we look through the story, it didn't just change Naomi's life and change the trajectory of Ruth's life, but it changed history. And so for us, as we look at Ruth's life, I want to point out these 3 steps that we can take when it comes to living a life fueled by love. And the first one is, go where love leads. Go where love leads. Ruth said, wherever you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. So a couple of weeks ago, we had this really a big close to a chapter in our campus here at South Pasadena, and that is that we said goodbye to Pastor Chad, who moved to Chicago. For those of you listening online or in Culver City or in Studio City, you've probably heard of the legend of Chad, because he is just the most incredible human being, and over the past couple of years, he was basically like a brother to me. And when he told me the situation, when he told me about moving to Chicago and broke down why that was, it was essentially, he learned that his daughter and his daughter's mom were moving to Chicago. They were going to be in another state. And Chad knew that if she goes there, I'm going there. Because Chad leads his life with love. He allows love to lead and to guide where he's going. See, love has a way of doing that. Love has a way of clarifying the direction of your life. A lot of our pain, a lot of our questioning, a lot of the stuff that we struggle with, that we're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this choice. I don't know where I'm headed. Love will clarify that for you. And I love, upon speaking with Chad, and I remember talking to Chad, and he's the option of Amelie's moving to Chicago. I may be going as well. I was kind of in denial. I was like, you're not leaving. You're staying with me. We'll house you. But it wasn't just Pastor Chad. Also, Chad's wife, Ye Lee, I remember when she approached several of us for asking for prayer when there was the possibility of leaving the state. And I remember Ye Lee told me something that just shook me. It was so impactful. Ye Lee, through tears in her eyes, she said, living without Amelie is not an option. And I was like, wow, see, that's what love does, right? It eliminates options. When you're guided by love, you know what it is an absolute yes and what is an absolutely not. See, love will guide your life. When I moved to Los Angeles, it was Pastor Carlos, who's my cousin, about 15 years ago, he approached me. We had a band together, and he said, like, I'm thinking of moving to LA, and we're going to pursue music over there and pursue our dreams over there. And I was like, yes, sign me up. And there's several reasons for that upon reflecting on it. And part of it, yeah, I love music, love making music. I also love the idea of Los Angeles. I've never lived there. Sounds cool, let's go. But the reality is I love my cousin. I love Carlos. I can't stand him, but I love him. You know what I mean? If you're close with a sibling or a cousin, you know exactly what I mean. But I've always had this sense, I think our lives are tethered. I think that wherever Carlos goes, I'm going. You know, and our bond, our love, we know goes beyond even us, right? So today I ask, where are you going? And what is leading you there? Because some of us can make the choice that Ruth is making. She's going where love leads. But some of us might make the choice that Orpah made. Or make the choices the way Orpah looks at it. We think about convenience. We think about comfort. We think about fear. We think about different forces that are guiding our lives. And if we're honest with ourselves, love is not the first one. Love is not the guiding force. I'll have to admit to you, during COVID, when things were really locked down and looking really tough here in Los Angeles, Brooke and I had this conversation, like, should we leave LA? Should we go to a place that's open? Should we go to a place that the restaurants we can sit in them? Go to maybe a state where a house costs like $50 or something like that? Where do we find those places? And we did reflect on that, I remember, and we both prayed on it, we both had conversations about it, but we're like, all of those things sound nice, but they are amenities. Amenities are great, love me some amenities, but they're not what guide my life. They're not the driving force. I moved to LA because I love my cousin, but I stayed in LA because I love Mosaic. I love you. All of you here, you've become family, you've become friends, you've become our community, you've become our tribe. And not only that, but I love the mission of Mosaic. I love that we are always reaching those who are furthest from God, furthest from Jesus. And you see, that ultimately, for Brooke and I, that love guides our lives. It keeps us here. So again, I ask, where are you going? And what is leading you there? But not only should we go where love leads, but we need to learn to love the people in our story. Love the people in your story. I find it kind of hilarious that Ruth loves her mother-in-law. Let me explain. When it comes to the like different familial relationships, usually daughter and mother-in-law aren't at the top of like tightest. You know what I mean? It's like father-daughter. It's like, you know, mother and son, siblings, husband and wife, like all of those, yes. Mother-in-law always like is a little bit tricky. And I have to say, LP, my mother-in-law, she's incredible. If you're listening to this, I love you. I could just feel a lot of you being like, tread lightly, Andy. You're on camera. And I love that my wife has a beautiful relationship with my mom. But typically speaking, a mother-in-law relationship requires some work, requires some time. And it makes sense because if you're a mom and you have a son, you're like the woman in his life. Then all of a sudden this other woman is coming in and you feel this kind of, you're being replaced, right? You feel some type of way. It's a little bit uneasy. Same thing with dads and their daughters, right? Like a dad has a daughter and then some guy is coming along and like the first thing you want to say is like, where's my shotgun? That's your first thought. You don't say that. You say your second thought, which is I need to buy a shotgun. But, so those are the kind of contentious relationships. And one of the reasons for that is because we don't choose our in-laws. I don't know if you know that. You choose your spouse. You choose your partner. You don't choose your in-laws. You inherit your in-laws. You are given in-laws. Here they are. And it's this fascinating thing to me that Ruth chose to be so devoted and so loyal and so loving to the person that she didn't actually choose, right? It was given to her. And there's something there for us. Have we learned to love the people that are in our story, even the people that we didn't choose? You see, I oftentimes get this as a pastor, like I meet people that are getting connected to Mosaic, and they're like, I'm just trying to find my people. And that's great, I get it. But sometimes it's like it's been 5 years. And they're like, I'm just trying to find my people. I have great news. Look around the room. I found them. Here they are. Found your people. Oh, thank you, Lord. We found them. We found our people. And it's because sometimes we have this weird thing of like, we withhold our love, right? And we expect people to kind of like prove themselves to be worthy, prove themselves to be like my vibe, my connection. And then we decide to love them if they prove themselves. But see, Jesus had something to say about that. Jesus said this. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus also said, love your enemies. And the word I would focus on there is the word your. Love your neighbors, love your enemies, which means you have people. You have people in your life that are yours. They have been entrusted to you. You have neighbors. You have coworkers. You have people in your sphere. Do you love them? Have you practiced loving them? Maybe you're like, Andy, I can't stand my neighbors. That's great, because thankfully, Jesus made this other category called enemies. And it's the same thing. The command is the same. Love them. Love the people you like. Love the people you dislike. In fact, enemies even includes the people that are actively against you. Love them too. Thank you, Jesus. We're working on it. But what if we saw people, the people in our lives, the people we're connected to, what if we saw them as a stewardship? What if we thought, it's not coincidental that she's my mother-in-law, or it's not incidental that this person is connected to me, or it's not a coincidence. Sometimes, not only do we see it as a coincidence, sometimes we see it as an inconvenience. Sometimes we're like, I want to find my people, but there's all these other people in the way. It's like, maybe your people, you have them already. Practice loving. Practice going above and beyond. Practice hospitality. Practice kindness with the people in your life. Now, I know some single guys in here are probably going to go up to a girl like, God told me to share my love with my people. It's like, no, I mean, shoot your shot, but don't do it because of this. I'm talking about when you seek someone else's benefit, regardless of what you receive. You see, when you're asking somebody out on a date, you're looking for something in return, right? And that's great. Good luck to you. But what I'm talking about, this type of love, is the love that goes above and beyond, the love that God is calling us to live. So again, I ask you, what if you love the people in your life? What if you consider the people in your life as a stewardship? You need to go where love leads. You need to love the people in your story. But you also need to let love be your legacy. Ruth said, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. The love that Ruth displayed was so transcendent, so beautiful, so awe-inspiring, that in a sense, it's almost like it's so close to God. And what I love about this is that Ruth is an outsider. She's not a Jewish person. She is a Moabite woman. But there was something about Naomi's relationship to God that Ruth said, I want to be close to that. And her act of love, her act of devotion, her act of sacrifice actually pulled her closer to God. And when that happens, all of a sudden, the love that you live transcends your generation. It transcends time and space. It goes above and beyond you. You see, not only did Ruth's act of love, act of kindness toward Naomi, not only did it end up blessing Naomi and them finding someone else, but here's how the story ends. Eventually, Ruth meets a husband named Boaz, and they get married, and they have a son named Obed. Shout out to Obed in Studio City. Named Obed, and then they had another son named Jesse, and then Jesse had a son named David, King David, the shepherd boy who will become the king of Israel. And then if you keep going down that lineage, if you keep following, you get to Jesus. You see, Ruth lived her life in such a way that I can imagine God selecting, because God promised that the Christ, that Jesus would come through the people of Israel, through a lineage. And I can imagine God selecting where it's going to happen. And Ruth is technically outside of that because she's not Jewish, right? But Ruth lived her life in such a way, such a loving way, that God must be Ruth, she's got it. She's it. She's in. I'm going to put her into the lineage. And it had an effect on human history. And then what does Jesus do? Jesus continues this legacy of love. So today, in case you didn't know, Ruth is Jesus' great grandmother. You thought you didn't know you were going to learn that today, but you're welcome. Somebody's going to ask you, do you know who do you know who Jesus is? Great grandmother. You're going to be like, Ruth, I learned it today. When you love in a sacrificial way, all of a sudden it goes beyond you and you start thinking about the people that are coming behind you. This has happened to me in such a powerful way since I've had my boys. Right? When I had Milo, I held him, I thought, I'd die for this kid. And then we had Caleb, our second born. I thought, I'd kill for this kid. It's just, you're overwhelmed with the sense of these little human beings have been entrusted to me. These little human beings are going to be shaped by how I love them. And that is something that I think about quite often. And about a few weeks ago, one of my good friends and one of the members here in our community, Albert Aquino, who's just right up front here, he posted on Instagram this beautiful initiative. He says, I'm going to begin this endeavor in which I'm going to be coaching dads. I'm going to be helping dads just be the best versions of themselves that they can be. So shoot me a DM if you want to be part of that. And I was like, sign me up. I don't know what this entails. And it's been the most beautiful thing. It's been a little scary because it's vulnerable, right? Albert will ask me questions like, how do you want your kids to remember you by? Wow, I have to reflect on this. Sometimes he'll give me homework such as when you hug your kids, don't be the first one to let go. Just embrace them. That they would know that you're always going to be there to love them. Sometimes the homework is do a family group hug once a day. And we do the family group hug. Sometimes Milo's like, what? I'm like, it's for your legacy, son. And we do all of these small, simple things that are just shaping these two little boys. It's shaping the people that are coming after me. And the reality is, I'm the beneficiary of somebody who acted in love, who acted in kindness. In 1952, I'm going to tell you a quick story. In 1952, there was, in Puerto Rico, there was this man who was a follower of Jesus, and he was also a preacher and a pastor. His name was Nunez. I don't know if he's related to Emilio Nunez, who's here, but his name is Nunez. Maybe some long-lost cousin, who knows. His name was Nunez, and one day Nunez felt this prompting from God. As he was praying, he said he felt God tell him to go to a house that was a couple streets over. And there was a family there, and that family had 14 kids. It was 1952. 14 kids. And he goes in, and then he said, I felt like God has called me here to pray for one of you. And one of the children, who was a 14-year-old boy, he had polio. So Nunez goes in and prays for the young boy, and the young boy is healed. He's healed of polio in that moment. And this family was a family that did not know Jesus at this time, but they allowed this person to come in. They thought, why not? Let's allow this person to come in and pray. So they pray for this young boy who had polio, and he was healed. Well, that young boy is my great uncle, Tío Fidel. He is my grandfather's brother. My grandfather was one of those 14 kids. And that family was forever changed because of that act of love. Tío Fidel was 14 at the time, became a pastor at 19, and then retired from being a pastor at 85. He sees like me, he's like, it's lightweight, son. You got a lot more to go. After that generation of my grandfather, 4 of those people became pastors. The generation after my dad's generation, 4 people are also pastors. In my generation, there are 4 pastors in our generation. You see, I never met Nunez. I don't even know what he looks like. I've heard about him. I've even my Tío Fidel, I've met him maybe like 6 times. Because there's 14 uncles and it's too much. And that act of love had a disproportionate effect on a whole family name. You know, in the same way, Ruth could never have imagined that her act of love, her act of selflessness, could have changed the course of history. You see, and that's what God is calling us to. When you live a life that's fueled by love, your life is going to have a disproportionate effect on people's lives. It's going to change somebody's story. It's going to change history for some people. It's going to change the way people view the world. It's going to have a disproportionate effect on the world. You can choose comfort. You can choose convenience. You can choose to live a more normal life. But if you want a life that lasts, if you want a story that will be told to the point that it becomes a legend, live a life of love. Live a life fueled by love. You see, Ruth chose that, and we're talking about her today. Orpah chose different, and we remembered her name wrong. We think it's Oprah. Because if you want your life to last beyond your own, choose to live a life of love. And I know for many of us here, you might be thinking, I don't know how I can do that. I don't know how that's a reality for me. I feel like I'm so lacking in love. I feel like I'm at a deficit. I feel like I need love. And the reality is that it is impossible to live this life, to live a life of just self-sacrifice, of this selflessness, of devotion to others, without fully being embraced by the love of Jesus first. When you understand how loved you are, when you understand how accepted you are in this moment, that gives you the strength to live a life of love. That gives you what you need. Because why? Because you're connected to the source of love, who is Jesus. You see, Jesus, I mentioned, he followed in Ruth's legacy of living a life of love. But he wasn't just devoted to one person. He loved you. That was his devotion. That was his commitment. That was his steadfast love, was towards you, the people who are listening to me right now. Jesus loved you, and he endured the cross because of that love. And he knows, Jesus knew that this type of love would change human history. It would change the trajectory of humans forever. And it has. It's changed my life, and it continues to change lives every day. So I want us to have the opportunity to say yes to that love, to say yes to Jesus, to say yes to living a life of love that comes from knowing Jesus. So I'm going to ask us all to bow our heads. And if that's you, if you want to say yes to Jesus, if you want to say yes to Jesus' invitation, I promise you that you will be filled with his love. And that love will fuel everything you do. That love will transform your life from the inside out. And for those of you even listening online, for those of you in Studio City, for those of you in Culver City, this invitation is for you as well. If you want to say yes to the person who lived the greatest life fueled by love ever, if you want to say yes to Jesus, I'm just going to ask you to utter this one prayer, and that is, Jesus, I give you my life. Just there in your chair or wherever you are, say, Jesus, I give you my life. Say, Jesus, I give you my life. And now for everybody with our heads bowed, and I'm going to ask those of you that made that prayer to raise your hand so I can pray for you. I see you. I see you. I see you. Beautiful. Love that. You said yes to Jesus. You've given your life to him. This is the beginning of a beautiful conversation, a lifelong conversation. I see you. Jesus, thank you for living a life fueled by love. Thank you for modeling what it looks like to have spiritual vitality, to live a life that is connected to you, connected to love, God, that when we do it, all of a sudden our lives expand beyond our own imaginations. Thank you that when we're connected to you, we're connected to the endless source of love. We're so grateful to you, God. I thank you for everybody in this room that's just said yes to you, and everybody listening to me across Los Angeles and across the world. God, I pray that you be with them, that you cover them, that you protect them, that you surround them with people that are on the same journey, on the same path, and that they would continue this conversation with you for the rest of their lives. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Can we just thank God for all the people that have given their lives to Jesus? Right now, we're going to have a pastor come and give you some next steps. I love you, Mosaic. Have a great Sunday.